The tear that became a lake. The story of kidnapped and raped girl whose life is vanished there. Based on a true story from Africa, Ethiopia, Amhara region. Before we begin, if you value truth hidden beneath silence, if you want to support homeless boys and girls, please hit subscribe and like and share to your real friends. This story is not just about one girl. It's a mirror to society's failures, a reflection you will not easily forget. Helen was just 11 years old, full of dreams and hope, but the cruel world had other plans. She was kidnapped and raped. This is her story, sorrowful, bitter, and painfully real. Stay with me. Chapter 1. The Bright Spark. I never thought that teaching mathematics could become a story of grief and sorrow. But Helen's story changed everything. Helen was an 11-year-old girl, a bright spark in grade 4 at our school in Bahar Dar. She had no father. He had passed away from cancer years before. She lived with her mother and her 15-year-old brother, Emmanuel, who was in grade 8. They were a small family fighting the harsh realities of life in Amhara region. Helen was intelligent, kind, cooperative, and everything a teacher hopes for in a student. She carried a worn sport bag with Lionel Messi's face on it, a symbol of hope and greatness, which now feels like a cruel irony. The day Helen disappeared, she walked home alone as usual. No one thought twice about a small girl navigating the busy streets by herself. No one saw the shadow that lurked, ready to snatch her away. 14 days passed like a nightmare. We searched, we prayed, we hoped. When she finally returned, Helen was no longer the girl who walked into my classroom with a bright smile. She was a broken shell, haunted and hollowed by the unspeakable. The pain of that moment is etched deep in my memory. I saw in her eyes in the silent scream of a child whose innocence was stolen. I wanted to scream at God, curse the heavens, demand justice. But the world moved on, as if nothing had happened. Society's values seemed skewed. The criminal was whispered about as a boy who made a mistake, while Helen bore the burden of shame no child should ever carry. Her mother's grief was volcanic, raw and fierce. She screamed into the night, crying for the daughters lost twice, once to violence and once to despair. Emmanuel, who had tried to be a protector, retreated into silence, his childhood stolen alongside hers. I quit teaching the moment Helen returned. How could I stand before children and talk of equations when the world was so cruelly unjust? How could I teach logic when life had shown only cruelty and silence? Helen told me on her last day, "Sir, I may not come tomorrow." I thought it was a child excuse, but how I know it was a quiet farewell, a prophecy whispered by a soul too tired to fight. 1 week after she returned, Helen took her own life, hanging herself near the shores of Lake Tana. The lake, once a serene beauty, now feels like a graveyard of tears, silent witness to a tragedy the world failed to prevent. I still sit by that lake, mourning, wondering if Helen's tears made the water so vast. I wonder if my own tears mingle with hers beneath the surface. I wonder if anyone remembers her, not just as a victim, but as a child full of dreams. Society prizes the criminal, blames the victim, and turns away from responsibility. We celebrate justice that is partial, silent on the pain that never ends. We teach children to fear the streets, but not to fear silence. We teach them to obey rules, but not to fight for their rights. Helen's story is not unique. It's a mirror reflecting a world that fails its children, a world that values appearance over truth, power over kindness. If we do not remember Helen, who will? If we do not change, how many more children will be lost to silence and sorrow? Chapter 2. Silence and Shadows. After Helen's disappearance, a heavy silence settled over the community. A silence filled with unanswered questions and broken promises. The police claimed they were investigating, but investigations in our city often feels like shadows chasing ghosts. Weeks passed with no news, only the unbearable weight of waiting. In school, Helen's empty desk was a wound that never healed. The classmates whispered, the teachers averted their eyes, and the hall seemed colder without her laughter. We all wanted to believe she would come back smiling, full of stories to share, but deep down we feared what silence already told us. When Helen was found, the girl who returned was not Helen we loved. Her spirit was crushed under the weight of unspeakable pain. Her eyes no longer shone with the eager curiosity of a child. Instead, they flickered with fear, confusion, and sorrow. Her mother's grief became a tempest. Days blurred into nights filled with anguished cries and shattered hope. Emmanuel, too young to fully understand, but old enough to feel the loss, stopped dreaming aloud. He carried the silent burden of her sister's face, his childhood stolen alongside hers. In the community, whispers turned to blame. She should not have walked alone. Her mother was careless. The victim's family became prisoners of shame imposed by a society that cannot face its own failures. Meanwhile, the man responsible was spoken of in hushed tones as a boy who made a mistake, granted sympathy instead of condemnation. The injustice of it all was a poison in my heart. How can we honor the offender while shaming the innocent? How can we turn the blind eye to suffering that was quietly beside us? I remember Helen's last day in school vividly. She looked at me and said, "Sir, I am tired." Not tired of learning, but tired of carrying the unbearable. How does a child carry such a sorrow and still find the strength to speak? After she ended her life, the community's response was disturbingly muted. Life went on, as it always does. The newspapers printed brief notes, the neighbors whispered condolences, but the real grief, the anger, the outrage, the demand for change was missing. I stopped teaching then. How could I teach them? The system failed so miserably. How could I stand before students and speak of justice and fairness in a world that rewarded cruelty with silence? Lake Tana became my refuge and my torment. The water's surface seemed to hold Helen's tears. The water's surface seemed to hold Helen's tears, vast and endless. I would sit for hours letting the pain wash over time, wondering if any of us truly understand the cost of our apathy. Helen's story is a mirror. Helen's story is a mirror reflecting our collective failure. A failure to protect, to listen, to care. It asks us the hardest question. What will we do so that no other child suffers as she did? Chapter 3. The Weight of Apathy. In the aftermath of Helen's death, the quiet sorrow turned into a bitter reckoning inside me. The bitter irony that a society claiming to value children so deeply could allow such cruelty to go unanswered was a wound that festered daily. We speak of justice as if it were a sacred flame, yet we leave victims in darkness, ignored and forgotten. The family's agony was a daily reminder of what we had lost. Helen's mother, once a pillar of strength, became a ghost of herself, her eyes hollow, her voice broken by endless tears. Emmanuel, too young to carry such grief, bore a silence heavier than words. His dreams, once bright, dimmed into cautious shadows. At school, Helen's absence was a gaping hole. The other children whispered, scared to the voice the pain they felt but didn't understand. The teachers tiptoed around the tragedy, afraid that acknowledging it would unravel the fragile fabric of normalcy they tried to maintain. Yet, the greatest cruelty was how society cast blame and turned blind eye into a true monster. The man who destroyed Helen's life was whispered about as a boy who made a mistake, deserving of forgiveness and a second chance. Meanwhile, Helen's name became harsh, a reminder too painful to speak aloud. These selective memories of tragedies that deepens the wound. We honor strengths but silence vulnerability. We forgive criminals but stigmatize victims. We claim to be a society of compassion but turn our backs on those who need it most. I often wondered if Helen understood this cruelty, if she saw the world's cold indifference before she decided to end her pain. I wished I could have told her that she was loved, that her life mattered, that the world was not as cruel as it seemed. But some wounds are too deep for words. Lake Tana, once a silent witness to life's beauty, became a symbol of loss. The water held her tears, vast and endless, reflecting the sorrow of a world that failed her. I can no longer approach its shores without feeling the weight of that loss pressing down on me. Her story is not just hers. It's a story of countless children silenced by fear, neglect, and injustice. It's a call to us all, to see, to hear, and to act. Because if we do not, then how many more tears will fill that lake? Chapter 4. Call to remember. In the end, Helen's story is a mirror held up to the society that prefers to look away. We tell ourselves stories about progress and justice, but the truth lies in the shadows where children walk alone and dreams are stolen. We honor criminals with sympathy and second chances, while victims like Helen are left to carry their pain in silence. We teach children to feel the dangers outside, but not the dangers within our own apathy and neglect. A quiet teaching because I could no longer pretend that education was enough in a world so cruelty unjust. How do you teach numbers to children when the sum of their suffering is ignored? How do we speak of fairness when the justice is so collectively applied? Helen's mother lost not just a daughter, but a future. Emmanuel lost his sister and his childhood. I lost a student who believed in me and a faith in the world that I once held. Lake Tana remains a vast, silent witness, a lake of tears that no one else seems to see. Every ripple is a memory, every wave a sorrow. I write this not because I have answers, there are none, but because we must remember, because Helen's story is a call to action, a plea for change. If we forget her, if we remain silent, then we are complicit. Then the tears will keep falling and the lake will grow even larger. So I ask you, look closely, listen carefully, act fiercely for Helen, for Emmanuel, for every child whose story has yet to be told. Thank you. See you in the next great story. It's me, Ikella. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hearing. If you love the story,